Hi, I'm Łukasz. I'm a software developer at AV System, and I created this presentation because I was wondering what can I do to be a better developer. Obviously, I could learn another programming language or a new framework, but I was wondering if there is something to improve on the higher level of abstraction. Well, if you take a look at the productivity resources out there, they're mostly about handling the tsunami of tasks and prioritizing them correctly. However, it doesn't really sound like my case because I'm far from being overwhelmed by my Jira board. So I had this hunch that it has to do something with this feeling of total focus when we are totally immersed in our code and we simply know that we are doing a good job. Well, this state of mind could be either called flow or a deep work, and it's not only the source of happiness, as Mr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi writes in his book, but it's also a state of mind when we achieve our best results, according to Cal Newport. But there is one more resource, a blog post, which made this whole matter for me way more intuitive. It's called Don't Wake Up the Programmer, and the author writes here that programming as an activity could be pretty much compared to sleeping, because in both of those activities we lose the track of time, but also when someone wakes us up or distracts us, it takes some time for us to get back on track. Therefore, to be better developers, we could say that we should sleep as long as we can, but in other more serious words, we should simply avoid distractions. So let's first talk about our calendars. Yet another blog post called Maker's Schedule Manager's Schedule, written by Paul Graham, where he writes that a reason why we hate meetings so much as programmers could be that we work on a different type of schedule. A typical day of manager looks like this, with the day split into units of 1 hour. Obviously, there are longer activities, but by default, they change what they do every hour. So on that schedule, scheduling a meeting is merely finding every slot and creating a new meeting, and that's it. We, however, work on a different type of schedule where we shouldn't really think of hours, but in the longer units of time, like 4 hours, so half of a day. So before lunch and after lunch in my case. Why? Because, well, 1 hour is barely enough for us to get started, but also when we have a meeting coming soon, we are more hesitant to fall asleep or focus on a hard task. So what could we do? Well, I try to schedule meeting if I have to. If it's short, I try to put it somewhere near the time when I would be distracted anyway. So near the lunch or at the beginning or at the end of my workday. But on the other hand, when those meetings are larger, like, for example, Scrum artifacts, we could simply sacrifice one 4-hour long block, and we could try to fit as much meetings or other distracting activities there, and freeing the rest for deep work. The second phenomenon, which is quite important for us, is Zeigarnik's effect. It's named after Bluma Zeigarnik, a Soviet psychologist who researched it almost 100 years ago. And it all started with her professor noticing in a cafe or a restaurant that waiters have an excellent memory for orders. But as soon as the order was paid, the memory was gone. As it turns out, our minds tend to remember unfinished things better. So unfinished orders, unfinished plot in our favorite series, so we have to watch another episode. All unfinished tasks that we have to take out of our head so we can focus on the activity we're doing right now. Luckily, there was another research which said that we don't necessarily have to finish this task for it to leave our head. Simply writing down the plan of doing it helps us getting rid of it, getting out of our head, so we can focus. So it would be good for us to have some sort of second brain where we could write down or put all informations that we don't need right now, so we can focus on the programming. And this is pretty much what Getting Things Done system does. In the system, we have some notion of the inbox, where we write down everything as it comes to us. So if you have an idea, if there is a new task we have to do, we simply write it down to our inbox, put it there, and get back to our activity, whatever it was. There is a second, way simpler, but I think still worth knowing technique I like to call brain dump, where when we finish our workday, we simply write down everything we still have in our head. So unfinished tasks, things we have to still remember, etc. Thanks to Zeigarnik's effect mitigation, we can enjoy after work our hobbies, whatever they are, at peace. And the next day, we simply read the dump, load it into our brain, and we are up and running quickly, so we fall asleep faster. Let's move to the technicalities. Obviously, the second brain could be implemented by post-it notes or a notebook, physical notebook, but I think we would rather select some application. I think you all know those, but there are two applications I would like to show you today, which are less known, and they have quite interesting approach, I think. The first one is Dynalist, and we create our notes here in form of nested bullet points. So we can create our notes in top-down approach. So we can sketch the main idea, and then we can specify or comment it below with nested bullets. In this tool, we can fold the details so we can focus on a bigger picture, and we can also zoom into some specific comment so we can work just with those details. Roam is quite similar, but its killer feature are bidirectional references. Those what you see here are references to pages, some sort of like in Wikipedia, but the difference is that those references work in both ways. So we see which page references this page. And it's way easier for us to create some sort of relations between nodes than to put them into the hierarchy. Therefore, even though our nodes create this bloated graph, as we can see it now, it's way easier for our brain to work simply with relations. The last thing I'd like to talk to you today are emails and inbox zero. And you could ask, why should we even bother with emails in 2020? Well, I think they're a great way to supplement the communication when we need to send some low priority message. And we don't want to distract our colleagues, because we can receive an answer not now, but for example, in a day or so. So first, obviously, we have to clean our inbox so we can comprehend even our inboxes, and we won't miss any message. And for that, I'm using inbox zero technique, which could be easily explained like treating emails somewhat like an assembly program, where we simply process one message or one instruction and move to another one. Process message, move to another one, and we iterate over all of our messages until there is no more left. And with the example of Gmail, Gmail has 3 features which greatly helps me with that. And I'm sure that all other email clients could replicate this, or either have this functionality, or it can be easily replicated. The first one is archive, and it's great because on the one hand, we get rid of this message when we click it, and it's gone. But on the other hand, when we realize that we needed it, we can always find it, search it, it's not deleted. So we don't fear that we'll lose this image, and it's easier for us to simply read the message, mark as done, and do not see this message in our inbox again. The second feature is snooze, and it's great because there are times when some message is important, but it's not urgent. So we have to deal with it, but now it's not the good time. With snooze, we can simply specify at what time we would like this message to reappear in our inbox, and for now, we can mark it as done. The third feature I use to clean my inbox is filter and skip inbox. And it's great for all sorts of newsletter or other automatic messages, which we actually like to read sometime. We can simply specify those messages with a specific criteria, for example, email address here, And we can specify that it should not appear in inbox, but it should appear under this specific label. So when we actually receive this message, we don't see it in our inbox, but if we want to read it actually, we can always select those messages under this label, and we can access it and read it when we would like to. And this is how pretty much my inbox looks like this most of the time. Wrapping up, well, you could ask, does it really help? And I have to answer, well, you tell me, because it did for me, but if I learned something about IT industry, it's that there is no such thing as one-size-fits-all solution. So remember about questions, remember about feedback. You can find here all links from this presentation also in my bio. And thank you for now, and back to the studio.